kinds of things. There's pictures and there's colors and there's just like, what would I want to see? And if I could do this differently, how would I do it? And how do I want to start? There's like a story. There's always a story. With this particular series, there's a lot of Virgin Marys, but then I sort of mixed it up and threw in like the Parvati and the Kali. And like most people think of Kali Ma as like just this ultimate destructive female force, but she isn't. I mean, so I'm thinking the show should be called Saint Center. Saint Center. Instead of like Saint Anne, Saint Mary, Saint whoever, just Saint Center. The center relates to like we're all human. That is what makes us human, is the fact that we sin. I had someone give me a call and she had like this really great idea of like what she would like to have as a commissioned piece. What she was looking for was like a female Moses, which I love switching stuff up like that, and I've done it before and I think it's just fabulous, and it's like, so I was like, okay, I'm down for this. The first one that I started with was like the 17th century Madonna. It's kind of, it was a English piece. This one. Just the face. Yeah. And so then it's sort of like all of them, I was like, I kind of like just the face. So I want to do all of them with just the face. She seems so solemn, and it's always like, the one thing that I noticed while I was doing these is that they're either always looking down at you or up and away from you. Very solemn looking. If I can get the eyes right, then everything else falls into place. If I can't get the eyes right, it's like, oh, this is not going to happen. There's one that I did, which was a really famous one, which is Our Lady of Sorrows. And the interesting thing about her is she was done during the Spanish Inquisition. And Madonnas save, and they offer solace. And this was done by an artist that supported the Spanish Inquisition. So this is Our Lady of Sorrows, and it is, I want to say it's a Portuguese piece, 17th century, so that would have been about 1600 and something, and it's actually a really cool piece. It's just so plain. Like, I like that it's just like this woman standing there, and she looks almost like a Carmelite nun with like the robes on and stuff, and she has a halo, and there's like 2 vases of lilies on either side of her, and it's her, and she's mourning. It seems like she's mourning so much. When I painted her, I kind of was like, I kind of like her, and I really don't want to do anything over it. And I really liked the background, so what I did was really basic. I just went in and did her halo and parts of her sleeve, and then there's her hands and her face, and that's it. There's this one, and this one's based on a Caravaggio, which the Renaissance, I'm sort of stuck in that. I kind of like that whole time period, but I wanted to work with like intense shadow and light. And I think I did okay. There's like some elements of it that I'm just like, I really, really love, and then there's some stuff where I'm kind of like, that's a little bit sketchy. But ultimately, I think it worked out all right. I actually really dig the background on this. I love the background, and I love this hand right there. That's like probably my favorite part, because I think it just came out so well, and it's like, it reads as detailed, but it isn't as detailed as it reads, which I thought, like, I saw some pieces in Florence a lot of years ago, and I saw this one piece, and it read like that, where it just read is like very, very detailed, and then when you looked at it, you were like, wow, this guy used like 6 brush strokes, and it gave me so much information. Kali. This is Kali with her necklace of heads and her jewelry. Her tongue is hanging out because Kali was created to fight demon forces, and then she was overcome with bloodlust, and she started desecrating the bodies of the dead. And Shiva, who was her husband, laid down on the ground, and she danced on him. And when she realized that she was dancing on Shiva, she hung her tongue out as a sign of shame, because a wife's feet never touch their husband. Hindu philosophy. So, there you go. The blue thing I always think is really interesting because it's like Krishna is blue-black also, and Arjuna from Mahabharata is also blue-black, but they're always depicted as like these cobalt teal people. In the Hindi philosophy, they say it's a blue-black, which is kind of interesting because it's like, from a historical standpoint, it could be very Dravidian in color and skin tone, but when it's pictured, when pictures are done of them, they're always done as blue. So I went with blue. And this one's Parvati and Ganesh. In prayer, Ganesh is addressed first before any other god is addressed. He's sort of like a gatekeeper. They made Ganesh from dust, basically, but it's like the dust from her body. So she made Ganesh, she made a statue of a little boy. And then she prayed to Shiva, who breathed life into it. So she asked for life for this form that she had created. So Ganesh actually literally comes from Parvati's body, but the life was breathed into him by Shiva. I would prefer the folding panel first, and then like another three and another three. All right. Cool. Thank you. Okay. I don't ever really paint anything I don't really throw away anything that I ever paint. And I don't really paint over anything because I always think that there's something that I can learn from pieces that I've done a while ago, and I can sort of see the changes that I've gone through as I've been doing stuff. So it's like if I'm doing something and I'm really into it, and I like it, then I'll just do different types of the same thing, but not necessarily the same thing. So I can just sort of work out different areas. I usually think in a series, and as I'm thinking, it progresses. So things change, and it's from the first painting to the last painting, you'll see changes, but that's just me getting used to how I want things done and seeing things slightly differently as I do them. So if I do the same thing over and over again, it never looks the same because it changes constantly. If I do a series of 10, they could be the same spot, but like I said, it's on this one, I may get the rocks just the way I want them. And on the next one, it may be the water. And on the third one, it'll be the rocks, the water, and a cloud. And by the time I get to number 10, I'm where I want to be. So that's sort of how series work for me. Once I actually put brush to canvas, I know where I'm going. I don't know what it's going to look like when I get there, but I know where I'm going. And that's the easy part. It's the prepping part and the getting it together in my head that takes a lot longer than actually executing any painting. I always think of acrylics as playing dominoes, which means that I play to my right and defend to my left. And so whenever I'm using a brush on canvas or panel, I'm actually putting that brush where I thought it should go 2 moves back. And I'm usually 2 steps ahead of how I think the medium is going to work. So what I see and what I actually do is somewhere in the middle. And the more I do it, I'm much surer of how it's ultimately going to come out, so that when I'm doing it, and if I'm doing it from one thing to the next, by the time I get to the next, I've developed a much better and clearer idea of how things are going to react from the first piece to the next piece. So this is Peggy, and Peggy was a really good friend of Jeff's, and this is one of Jeff's cats in the background, and she used to come in and she would critique his artwork, and she would let him know what she liked and what she didn't like. Peggy started the food bank in South County. She was a registered nurse,
And for whatever reason, she opted to walk away from it, and that's what she did.
Peggy actually passed away in a trailer upstairs from the Kwakwama'aw tea room. And her ashes were buried in a tree connected to the Kwakwama'aw tea room. And so Peggy's basically like coming home. And these people that like are again overlooked, marginalized. I mean, what stops them from being on an iconic level with these female deities? And what, their energy comes from like the same source. Because that's the whole thing about it is there's like a common story that runs through all ideology. And we are that common story. So it's basically like the diversity of being human.
Theology in all its different forms is really interesting to me because I am never really clear on like why so many religions clash when they're all saying the same thing. It's like, yes, there are distinctions, there are differences, but you love and you teach through love. So whether my religion is like living on a street corner and making it day to day, and your religion is like praying in a church that things are getting better, both of us are asking for the same thing. We're just asking for it in a different way. With Hinduism, for all intents and purposes, like the gods are androgynous. They sort of switch up, and like what today may be called a male is actually a female tomorrow, or a female aspect of the same male. The male aspect of that is Shiva. Shiva is the male aspect. Shakti, which is the female aspect of Shiva, is actually energy and movement. So Shiva is, but Shakti moves. And that's the female energy through any piece. It's the movement. It is the energy sort of expanding outward. They're all the same. They're all different aspects of the same individual, which is like a lot of what this show is like it's different aspects of all of us, and we're all the same. We're individuals. So
for me, it's got to be cohesive in my head. It's got to hang well together, and it's got to be if it's not personal, then there's no point in me doing it. And this is all very personal, I think. I think everybody spends their whole life, I know I do, I've spent like a lot of my life learning who I am as a person. And this is part of that learning process for me. So it just so happens that I'm fortunate enough to be able to paint a little bit so I can paint it out. My dad asked me why I did something one time, and the answer was because I can. And I think that's why we all do whatever we do. It's because we can.